Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Jeffrey David Hartford, and the coach. That's the conduit of optimism, altruism, consciousness, and health. And today I have for you a fantastic guest that I'm excited to get to know a little bit better, but I did have the opportunity to have a little bit of a call with last week, and really excited to share this with you. Oksana Hansen, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeffrey. I appreciate it.
Yeah, truly, truly my pleasure. And Quantum Lens Wellness, is that correct? That's the business, that's the platform and such.
That is correct.
Awesome. Everybody, I highly recommend you check out Oksana's stuff over there. And we're going to get some of the backstory today. We had that opportunity to have that call and realized we've both walked a very similar path. This background that was, let's say, less than health optimization focused that led us into a series of things that drove us more into focusing on health. And I think we're going to go right after it. So, tell us, I would say, let's start with we have a similarity with our diagnosis, slightly different diagnosis, but that was kind of that catalyst to light that fire for you. So we'll start with that and then kind of backtrack into what the life was like that led you to that diagnosis. So I'll throw to you.
Yeah, I'm actually going to tell you something I've never told anybody else. And so here we go.
Yeah.
My mom was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a bone cancer, when I was 7 years old.
Hmm.
And she's alive today. They actually did an amazing surgery where they removed the whole right side of her face. But
Wow.
I never knew a healthy mom. And she was age 30 when she was diagnosed with that. And so in my mind, I always thought it was genetics. Like I thought that I was going to die in my 30s. I think my grandmother died at 50. Um, on my father's side of the family, they've lived some really long lives, like into their 90s. But in my head, I always thought like we lived through Chernobyl, like there was all these like chemicals, like all these toxins. And I just always thought like I was going to die early.
Hmm.
And I think I kind of lived my life that way. So I'm going to be like really vulnerable here and share with you like I wasn't making the best decisions when it came to my health because I just always assumed like, oh, life's short. Let's just enjoy it, right? So how many people
Wow.
do that? And I almost feel like because of that attitude and because of the way that I lived my life, I think I manifested cancer at the age of 35.
Hmm.
And I think my viewpoint on it was like it's the best thing that's ever happened to me because it completely uprooted my life, but in the best way possible. I didn't really feel like I was living my life in alignment, and that was really acting on the outside the way that I felt on the inside. Like there was no integrity. I wasn't living a life true to myself, and that was like I I had a great job. I was in tech sales in the San Francisco Bay Area. I made great money. I had lots of friends, all those things that make for a happy life. But really, truly, um, my goals and my ethics weren't really lined up with that lifestyle anymore. And so I think it was really a wake up call to say, like, wake up. Now it's time to revisit everything. And I think I shared with you, I had two small babies at the time. And I was like, what am I doing? Is this really how I want to raise my children? And so my husband and I had the courage to just pack up and move out of California. And we moved our children to the South, to Nashville, Tennessee, to start a brand new life. And
Wow.
although we'd made a lot of changes where we took the stress out of our lives of like having nannies raise our children and not sitting in the traffic and a lot of things that were causing a lot of like angst and financial right strain when you live somewhere where it's that expensive to live. um, I didn't necessarily make the big leap to leave technology, and that's when I was diagnosed with cancer 6 months later. And so it was great timing because I remember thinking, okay, well, if I survive this, I'm going to make a change. And
Hmm.
so honestly, I feel so grateful for that diagnosis. And I also think cancer is very protective, and this is just my viewpoint on it, is cancer is cells that aren't functioning correctly and they come together to form a tumor or whatnot. And so it's actually very protective because it's helping it not to spread throughout the body. And so I think when I started learning about all these things, and we can get into that, I just changed my whole viewpoint on the body and its amazing ability to protect itself and heal itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's incredible. I really appreciate your willingness to be vulnerable and share all that. I really think that's so important in this movement of empowerment. And you were able to do that. Your experience was finding your power. You empowered yourself, you saw your story and your situation in a way that the average person would not. And as such, your journey led you to healing. And I'm 100% with you. I mean, the human body has such an incredible power with this innate ability to heal, so long as we give it the right stimulus and get out of the way. Stop listening to the norm, if you will, of the food like substances that are the majority of the things that we consume here in the States, and being inundated with technology and all the non-native EMFs and such. And we now understand the impact that has on the body. But I get it's wild, right? We talk about it, diagnoses like tumors and cancers, and we view it as something that we're grateful for. And it's something that was the catalyst to the change to allow us to become who we were meant to be all along, but we weren't allowing ourselves to do it. And that's why I'm so excited. Like, I was drawn to your channel and your information and your content without even knowing that part of your story, pretty much just because it was the quantum biology. I'm really intrigued by all of that. And I think that is the answer for so many different things. The more we can understand it and share it with people, get them to understand it, it's going to open doors for more people to be empowered. But as we got talking about our similarities with diagnoses and our approach to it, I felt like we were drawn together. And this is pretty wild. So you caught me there too. I didn't realize you made the move before you even had the diagnosis. So that's like listening to that deep intuitive sense, that calling to say, hey, something's off here. I'm finding my path. I'm falling into alignment with my purpose. And like me, you have a spouse who supports that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's absolutely massive too. I'm really grateful for you that you have that. So I guess we'll say at that diagnosis, what was your gut? What was your reaction? What was your anticipation of a treatment plan? Well, let's go down that path for a little bit.
Yeah, I want to say a lot of people are going to say COVID was their wake up call. And I really felt like I was just 6 months ahead of that with my diagnosis because there was something in me that made me question everything from the start. When they told me that I had melanoma, and it's that phone call that you get, you're like, you need to come in tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. That's the call you
Mhm.
never want to receive from your doctor, right?
Sure.
And I remember being in that appointment with my husband and getting diagnosed with melanoma. And my response was literally like, isn't this an 80-year-old white man diagnosis? I'm very confused how someone who's as young as I am, I'd worn sunscreen my whole life. I was like, I don't understand. So to me, what made me question it was that I had was so religious with my fair skin type to wear sunscreen my whole life. I was so confused how someone as religious as me wearing sunscreen got diagnosed with skin cancer. And I got
Mhm.
it diagnosed on my lower leg, which I guess is a very common for women. They get it on their legs. Um, and then they told me I needed to stay out of the sun.
Hmm.
And that, I don't know where that intuition came from, but I was like, sun gives life to everything on earth. How are we going to now hide from the sun? And at first, I have to be really honest. Like, even though I was questioning all these things, I was still following whatever it is that they were telling me. I was like, okay, I'm going to put on sunblock. I'm going to wear long sleeves. I'm going to not go outside. But then there was this voice inside of me that kept saying, this can't be right. And so the way we went about treatment was surgery and to cut it
Mhm.
out. But again, there was some part of me that said, I need to do my own research. I need to figure this out. And I found this one study that I presented to the surgeon. And I asked her, hey, how many millimeters around the cancer are you going to cut out? And she
Mhm.
said 4 millimeters. And I said, would you do me a favor and read the study that I found that says, because of the way melanoma is with its irregular borders, I want you to cut out 10 millimeters. And she read the study and we had a conversation about it. It was the first time in my entire life that I'd pushed back to a doctor.
Mhm.
And to me, it was my life on the line. I had two small children at home, and I said, I don't care what it looks like. I'm a happily married woman, and I don't care anymore. Like, I just want to be alive. I want to be here for my children. And so when she did that and we got rid of the cancer, and I'm over 5.5 years cancer free now,
Nice.
um, it was the most empowered I've ever felt in my life. And that was one baby step for me to start questioning all the other things that came down the pipe after, shortly thereafter in 2020. And so my approach wasn't to just reject everything. My approach was, let's slow down.
Mhm.
Like, no decision is detrimental. Like, there's always time. So let's slow down, whether it's to do your own research. Let's slow down to talk to people who have been through this. Let's just slow down. We don't need to make any decisions right here and now. And so I felt like that approach helped me to not make a lot of other bad decisions when it came to my health, because I was
Yeah.
just slowing down and taking everything in.
That's beautiful. You know, what that really, what jumps out to me about that is you eliminated any level of fear. And I really think that is at the forefront of this paradigm that I see crumbling down, this disempowerment paradigm. And, you know, I try not to be overly cynical. I'll word it in a way to say that maybe it wasn't intentional that they set it up that way, but it is rooted in fear and anxiety and worry and all these low vibrational frequencies that when we're in those states, it's much easier to manipulate people and to get them to do what you want them to do. So I don't think that every single doctor is guilty of doing that, but I do believe they're educated or indoctrinated within the paradigm that is set up for profit. You know,
Mm,
so in that moment, if somebody is terrified and full of fear and feels hopeless and helpless and please, doc, help me, just tell me what to do, I'll do it, you're so vulnerable. So for you in that moment to be like, you know what, let's pump the brakes. I'm
yep.
not letting fear take over. I'm going to use some logic. I'm going to use some rationale. And I have an intuitive sense that I may not have tapped into and really empowered yet, but I'm going to start to listen to it now. And something different is going to come from this. And, you know, it really is exciting for me to hear that. And, you know, I'll say the word congratulations on the 5.5 years cancer free, but at the same time, it's the type of thing that it comes as no surprise knowing the mindset that you have, this self-awareness that you have to have slowly allowed the authentic version of yourself to come to the surface and embrace that. And that's who you are now. That's what's allowed you now to take on this whole new path of your life, which is your path. This is your authentic path. And that's exciting for me. I love that you're getting to share this story.
Thank you so much. It makes me think of this book I'm reading right now, and it's from Napoleon Hill,
Yeah.
and it's called Outwitting the Devil. And they
Awesome.
just released this book like after most of his family has died now, and they were afraid to release it because he wrote it back in the 1920s.
Hmm.
And it's a conversation. I mean, there's some hypothesis like, was he on mushrooms, writing this book? Did this really happen? Was this like a dream? Like, so nobody really knows because unfortunately he's not around to tell us about it. But it's this conversation that he's having with the devil, and the devil has agreed to tell him all the tools that he uses to create what he calls drifters. And drifters are people who can't think for themselves. And the devil says that he has about 98% of people are drifters in life. And
Mm.
so Napoleon Hill is questioning him, and the devil has to answer every question with the truth. And he said, what is the number one easiest way for you to create a drifter? Take someone from being a free thinker to a drifter. And he says, fear.
Wow. Wow. That I've never heard of the book. I've never read it, unfortunately, but I will. Thank you. So that's now the second book you've told me about that there's some connections happening here. And how fitting is that for today's day and age? Boy, oh boy, there's an awful lot of drifters walking around that are just programmed, and it's scary to see that people won't allow themselves to think for themselves, use a little bit of logic, and just you know, push back a little bit, even without being, without stirring up the pot too much. Just ask a few questions, not to take things for granted. That's exciting. I look forward to taking that book in too. And you're
Yeah,
just reading that now, you said?
I'm in the middle of it right now.
Okay.
But I think I we joke, my husband and I joke about it before we were really truly awake to all the things, is we joke like, wasn't life easier to just not know these things, right? I would never go back, but boy, like that was a lot less things to worry about.
Yeah, it's funny. I know what you're saying. I have a level of myself that I can relate, but I've known for a very long time. Um, when did I figure it out? I read a book. I read it and I discovered that, I'm kind of labeled a questioner, which initially it was hilarious. As I read this, I'm like,
Ah.
wait a minute, is that right? And I'm like, I laughed at myself out loud. I'm like, I literally just questioned whether or not I'm a questioner. I think I am.
Love that.
Yeah, I was like, all right, I think I just confirmed it. If my memory serves me correctly, it's the book The Four Tendencies. I believe it's by Gretchen Rubin. If I'm wrong on that, boy, oh boy, my apologies, but I think that's right. And I think back to being a kid. I always had this I guess I'm going to call it an ability to slightly push back towards authority and just feel like, hey, just because you're in that position doesn't mean you're always right, and what you're saying right now doesn't feel right to me. So I'm not going along with that. And it's something that I've been able to cultivate, and now it's rooted in science. It's rooted in life experiences. So I'm not just being a jerk about it. It's that I want the evidence. I want to know if this is true or not, and it's become quite powerful.
Do you have children, Jeffrey?
I do. I've got three.
Okay. Okay. So I think when I started observing my children, it's they innately know what's right for them, right?
Hmm.
So I remember my daughter would just eat butter, just straight stick of butter. And I'd be like, oh, do you want any bread with that butter? And at the time, I wasn't thinking that, like, they know they need that fat to develop their neurotransmitters, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was weird, but kids just know. Anytime I've ever tried to give my kids Tylenol, and this was a long time ago, but
Yeah.
they didn't want to take it. Right. And I would just be like, I would just give up. I'd be like, okay, then your fever, and it's fine. And sunblock. Kids hate sunblock. Have you ever been at a water park watching all the parents lather up their kids in sunblock? Kids
Yep.
hate sunblock.
Yep.
And I just like think about, we innately, intuitively know what our bodies need, what we want, right? And at some point we just start doubting that, and or we're conditioned to start just going down a different path, and then we did. And so that just really, I look to my children and I'm like, they really know what their body needs, and they listen to that, and I try to empower them to do that. And I'll tell you a quick story. I've never told anybody this either. So my daughter has a tree nut allergy. She's very allergic to walnuts and pecans.
Hmm.
And I think it was like a couple of years ago, we went in every year. We have to go in for the testing, and they do the, prick test and whatnot. And um, as soon as they put the stuff on her arm, she's screaming, Mommy, help me, help
Oh.
me. This hurts. And I looked at the nurse and I said, take it off. And she said, no, for this to be a valid test for you to get the renewal of like your EpiPen, prescription, it has to stay on for 15 minutes. And I said to her, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Look at her arm. It's inflamed. It's red, it's burning. Clearly, she still has an allergy to it. Well, ma'am, our processes say 15 minutes. And my daughter, I've never seen her so scared. She said, Mommy, help me, help me. And I said, take it off right now. And we walked out of the office and we've never been back since, because I wanted my daughter to know that her body, she was in charge of it. And even I wasn't going to make her sit there in pain for 15 minutes just because it's the protocol for them to prescribe her an EpiPen.
Yeah, good for you. You know, it's terrifying to me how many people feel like, and it goes back to it's the fear. It's the,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't know better. You know, we have this whole movement towards, well, you have to recognize that you're not the authority and you have to defer to the authority and you sit down, shut up and listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And God bless you. Good for you. You know, there's that's listening to your heart, that's just following that intuition of, hey, something's wrong here. This is ridiculous. And to think that that's the protocol we still go through, there's just something wrong there. And I just feel this massive growing movement towards pushing back to that paradigm and saying, you know what? No, I don't want your help. I trust my body's ability to heal. We've been around an awful lot longer than the little over 100 years that we've had this aspect of the medical system. And yeah, I don't think I want your help. That kind of help isn't for me. So good on you for sure. And you're absolutely right. Kids are, there's definitely an intuitive sense, an innate sense of what they need. And I've, in a slightly different sense, but I've really been looking to, especially my youngest, my 5-year-old lately. I have a lot of lessons to learn from him. You know, I've had a sense that it's for attention. He's seeking some attention from me, and that might be it. Maybe it's just more time together because we have a lot of time together, but with my work schedule, my wife is a little more hands-on with certain things. I get him on the bus every day. I get him off the bus every day. But there's just some things that I've realized. I'm like, man, he's not acting like himself at these certain moments, and it's towards me. So rather than me getting angry at him and yelling at him, and which admittedly I've that happens too, and I try to catch myself, and I try to make sure that refractory period from getting upset to recognizing, oh, wait, I just messed up. Hey, buddy, I'm sorry. Give me a hug, you know? But there's such a lesson in there for me to learn from him. And boy, that's what an awful lot of us adults need to do is turn around and be like, hey, no, no, no. Yeah, there's some things I can teach them, but no, it's not just that they need to listen to me in every area. I don't know it all. And there's something that they just naturally know, and we need to follow their lead sometimes.
Well, and they're really good at slowing down. Like, I remember when I was living in the Bay Area, I would never slow down. Like, my kids would want to stop and pick a flower or observe something in nature. And I was always in this go, go, go mindset. And really, it wasn't until we moved to Nashville that I was like, let's go on a scavenger hunt outside. Let's print out a little piece of paper and we're going to look for a squirrel. We're going to look for this and that. And learning to slow down, like, I think that's probably like, feels like the message today is just slowing down in a lot of different ways. Um,
That's right.
and especially when it comes to like eating our food, right? Like how many ways could this be applicable to our health, right?
Yeah, every truly, and it's really funny you went there because what's going on in the back of my mind as we're having this conversation, and I love this. I don't want to change the trajectory of this, but I'm thinking interesting as people are listening right now, they might be thinking, hey, you mentioned quantum biology. You're not really tapping into the science, and what do we have to learn here? But this is what to learn. This is the real integration of the information. So we haven't gotten to too much of the sciencey side of it, but this is the life side of it. This is slow down, learn to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system. You know, my day to day is I'm a massage therapist. I've got a background in the fitness industry. I've been in the industry for over 20 years, personal training, corrective exercise, but I really found my calling more so with the massage. And what I tell every single client I work with is my goal, my job is to give your body the stimulus it needs to repair itself, and
Yes.
most of that is rooted in teaching them how to consciously stimulate their parasympathetic, to slow down, to shut off that survival mode of sympathetic fight, flight, and freeze, and understand intellectually first, oh, there's another side to that, and I can play an active role, get that rest, digest, relaxation, and healing through some nice deep breathing. Let's stimulate the vagus nerve, and you're spot on. Follow along with the kids, and you definitely have a bit of a blessing there. And I know your personality shows it to me already, but there's something about Nashville. I've been there twice now. My wife and I fell in love, and it helps you to stimulate that side. It just slows things down, and that's incredible. You're spot on.
I'm very sensitive to energy and I don't know, like I love Sedona. I go several times a year. I always go for my
Yeah,
birthday, and it's these vortexes that you can really feel like um, the veil very thin, right?
yeah,
And somehow, like I just fell in love with Nashville. Like I felt the same way about it. And it's why we chose Nashville for our 2-day quantum health retreat that we're having in the
yep.
at the end of June this year, June 26th and 27th. We found this beautiful 160-acre old rock quarry that still has these beautiful rocks and running water and hiking trails. And I mean, it's just such a great place to just get away from the city and then just be out like in nature, in the sun, like just this totally healing atmosphere.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I knew we would eventually talk about that. So since we brought it up, let's go there. I know you and Carrie Bennett are hosting it, and guys, you listening here, if you can make it happen, get your butts there, make that commitment, go learn, go live this quantum lifestyle. The food is in the quantum realm, it's local, it's seasonal, everything about it. And I know I was reading through that the lodging is kind of offsite of where the retreat is, but
Mm-hmm.
that makes total sense because most places for lodging, unless you're out camping, you're not really having a very quantum friendly environment, and to be able to host it within those areas. They've got these nice big meeting rooms, and they've done a great job, but they didn't do it through the lens of quantum. So you've got all these artificial lights and just the ventilation in there. You don't want that. So that location sounds perfect. And there's a small part of me that is still optimistic. I can try to make it happen, but I'm afraid that it coincides with my family's camping trip, which
Ah,
that's a beautiful quantum space as well. We go camping, I disconnect, and I love everything about it. But yeah, tell us a little bit more about the retreat while we're on the topic.
yeah, absolutely. So we have speakers kind of flying in from all over the world, really a lot of people in the quantum health space. And this is going to be a quantum healthy retreat. So we're going to eat at the times that our bodies are meant to eat. The 10,000 square foot barn that's hosting the facility, it has like slide open doors and windows. So we're going to have this outdoor indoor space, right? So it's not going to be full of like toxic blue lights and all the things. But really is what we have found is the need for community is bigger than ever. And
Mhm.
really, like, we've met all these people, but we've never met them in person. So I just can't wait to see all these people in person, give them a big hug, right? And just get to know each other on a much deeper level. And this isn't going to be a stuffy conference. Like, there's going to be a lot of learning, a lot of information, but we're pairing things with experiential things. So we're going to talk about, um, mitochondrial health. We're going to talk about ether. We're going to talk about spirituality. We're going to talk about water. We're going to do breath work. We're going to do cold plunges. So there's going to be so many amazing, just quantum aligned vendors there as well, where you can experience different tools for healing. But then the biggest tool for healing is really going to be that we're out in nature under the sun. So.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And you're right. There is this messaging has been out there for a little while now. And I'm just so grateful for this space because everybody I've met within this space is just so gracious, so loving, so caring and giving and wants to actually help make a difference in people's lives. There's this empowerment sense that I have from it. And man, everything you just described there right now, I mean, that's my energy. That's my life. If I can make it happen, I'm not giving up on it yet. If I can make it happen, I'll be there. But so I tell you what, then, my audience definitely is familiar with quantum. We've talked quite a bit about it. I've had several different guests on where we've delved into it. So I'll kind of throw to you where you feel the right course of action for today is. What topic speaks to you the most about it? What do you feel has impacted your health, your family's health the most about it? And I'll let you direct it. Where do we want to go quantum wise?
Sure. Yeah, I think definitely what has made me most successful in my health journey is, well, here, let me define what I feel like quantum biology is to me, because I do find that a lot of us have different definitions, right?
Sure.
Or
Perfect.
we interpret it different ways. So for me, it's we're looking at healing on like a subcellular level, yes, but where I think the quantum comes in for me is mind, body, and spirituality. And so I know the first half of this podcast, we talked a lot about mindset and fear and all those other things. But I think if you don't get the mindset piece right, your body just listens to your subconscious thoughts,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So we have these programs that are constantly running in the background that we're unaware of,
Hmm.
right? And sometimes they come out in speech, and sometimes in my coaching with clients, they'll say something and they'll say, that sounds like a subconscious thought. And then once they think about it, they're like, oh, I didn't realize I had that belief. So then we focus on trying to change that belief system, and then your
Hmm.
body listens. Like, so your body is a physical tool for your subconscious, and your body has to do what its mind and subconscious mind is telling it to do. There's no other way. That's just a law of nature. And
Yeah.
so once we kind of focus on the spiritual aspect, the mindset aspect, the physical body, it just listens and everything kind of comes together.
That's beautiful. And I could not agree more. And it's interesting, so Dr. Jack Cruz for me was the first person that I listened to, the God, countless podcasts he's been on now, but light water magnetism, that's what we keep hearing. And as he delves into what each of those things mean, it clicked instantly for me that there's something here, but I didn't totally understand it all. And I've continued to listen and listen and listen. But the explanation you just gave is what resonates even deeper with me, because we both have that empathic side to us, this innate spiritual side that even if for quite some time we didn't understand it, we felt it, and we've gradually learned to give it some attention and cultivate that skill set. And as you talk about subconscious programming and such, I mean, that instantly brings me to Dr. Bruce Lipton's work, and his work really resonates deep with me. And I think that's the absolute starting point for most people's healing journey, maybe everybody's healing journey, because the average person has no clue that they have those programs running, that they had no say in downloading those programs in their subconscious. It came from family members, loved ones, teachers, the different people that they were around, quite literally from the third trimester of pregnancy while they were still in the womb until 7 years of age. And most of that, if you recall back, especially from being in the womb, a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, we have no recollection, no memory whatsoever of that. And then because it's in our subconscious, when we're acting our subconscious, we're doing so because the conscious thinking mind is actually inside thinking. We're disconnected from it. We're reacting from our default mode in a way that we would not choose to do consciously unless we've had that brought to our conscious awareness that we do act that way, and we've done the work to change it. So our subconscious now is our doing. That's the goal, and that's the journey I've been on, and I'm there now and feeling it. I reflect back a younger version of me. I'm like, oh my God, if that kid can become where I've gotten to and where I'm going, anybody can, so long as the information is delivered properly and they become receptive to it and they do the work. So I have not heard anybody talk about quantum through that lens yet, and it's yet another thing. I'm going to recall. So let's see, Sacred Contracts by Carolyn Miss is the book that you recommended to me when we were on our phone call. I got it as soon as we got off the call. I listened to it, and I'm not kidding. My eyes were welling up. I said, there's something here. We were brought into each other's paths for a reason, and you're providing me with so much, and we together now will provide the audience with so much. And I pray this is the start of their healing journey. So, yes, that was a beautiful introduction into the quantum, and I'll allow you to continue. Sorry to take over there.
Yeah, I mean, we could go into so many different directions. I think when I speak, I want people to get something practical out of it, right? Like it's very easy for us to sit here and talk about a lot of different stories and things like that, but I also want people to take something that they can like implement right away.
Yeah.
And I think I want to just mention that we make about 30,000 decisions a day. Okay, and why am I telling you this? It's
Yeah.
because our bodies create shortcuts called habits. And
Okay.
that's so we don't have to make 30,000 decisions a day. And so the number one place for a lot of people to start is just observing, right? Like just observe your habits. How
Yeah.
much time are you spending on the screen? What do you do right before bed? What do you do right when you wake up? And you start just observing those questions, and then you say, is the person where I am right now in my personal journey, is that the same as where I want to be? Is the person who I want to be, right? Like this is very present for me right now. My husband and I, we meet every year at the beginning of the year. So we come up with our separate goals for the year. And then we meet and we come together and we come up with joint goals for the family. And then we also talk
Mm.
about how do we support each other in our individual goals. And so when I look at the Oksana at the end of 2025, am I acting like that Oksana now, or am I still making the decisions from the Oksana in 2024? Right.
Yeah.
And and there's no judgment or shame, because for me it's like I'm just trying to be better than I was yesterday. And am I making the decisions that are leading setting me up for success to that growth, or am I taking steps back or standing still? And I truly think that if we're not moving forwards, we're dying. Like
Yeah.
in so many different ways, even in the biological body, like you stop having sex, your hormones are going to go haywire because it thinks like, I don't need to procreate anymore, right? And there's so many different examples of this in life, right? A lot of people get sick right after they retire because they stop using their brain and stop going to work every day and stop doing the things that, they're passionate about or whatnot. So, yeah, so I guess one of the things that I would say is just examine your habits. And
Yeah.
for me, my family and I are doing the 1,000 hours outside challenge. Have you heard of this
Awesome.
before?
I have not, but it sounds wonderful already.
Okay. So I don't know a lot about the founder of it, but it was the challenge to get outside for 1,000 hours for the year.
Okay.
And so it's kind of broken down into like how many hours each month do you spend outside to kind of average the 1,000 hours. So like January, February, it's cold, it's snowing outside. It's like an hour a day. And then it obviously gets more as like the weather warms up. But
Sure.
what we've honestly done is we've taken a look at what's important to us, and the quantum circadian lifestyle and being outside and close to nature is one of the most important things for us. And we have felt so much different since we've started living that way. And so we decided to buy a lake house. One, so we could be outside in nature. We have a couple
Mhm.
acres, we have forest. The children are outside playing. They're not on their devices, they're not on iPads, right? And you're in the water. So, like, how healing is it to be like in electrically charged water that's giving you all
Yeah.
these like negative electrons, and so healing. And then just being like watching the sunrise every single morning, like just sitting on our deck, watching the sunrise, watching the sunset. Like, it has brought so much joy to our life. And that's probably a decision we would have thought like we're going to save for retirement,
Yep.
and we took a look around and we're like, no, we're going to instill being in nature with the kids. And
Mhm.
honestly, like it's our happy place. Like, so we have this place in the city and then this place at a lake, and we've literally uprooted our entire life so that we can focus on being in nature and being out in the wild, I guess.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it's so I often like to focus on being more solutions oriented than problems oriented. And I think in our society, we tend to be more programmed to look at the problems and get overwhelmed by them. So you're starting right out by saying, hey, here's a solution. Here's something we can do. Sit down, take inventory of your habits and be honest with yourself and ask yourself, is this version of myself providing what I need to become the other version that I want to continue to be, or create the life that I want to have. And now giving us a personal example of what you've done. And that's beautiful. I mean, that's so much more powerful if you sat your kids down, and this would be valuable, but sat your kids down and taught them almost classroom style the concepts of quantum biology and how it'll help them out in life if they understand this and do this. Well, you're just integrating it right in, and that's just their lifestyle. That's what they know. So they won't even necessarily need to intellectually express it to somebody why they do it or what it does for them, but they feel it. They're getting that benefit, and that's absolutely beautiful. Oh, I love it.
They know it too. It's so funny. So I don't know. It's like 19 degrees outside. Well, we sit on the front porch and watch the sunrise every single morning. And you'll see people walking by with their dog. They're like, "Oh, it's so warm outside. You guys decided to sit outside?" And and it's funny because we get all these comments. Or my husband and I always take a UVA walk during the morning, and he's still wearing shorts. And I cannot tell you, it's like once a day, someone's like, "You're wearing shorts outside in the snow?" Right? So it's so funny because I love getting that reaction out of people, because if they ask why, right? Like,
Yes.
so the guy who was walking his dog, who said, "Oh, it's so warm outside. You guys are sitting out on the front porch this morning." And I said, "We watch the sunrise every morning," right?
Yep.
And it's it's just having people ask the question, right? Make them question, like, "Oh, why is these little kids sitting outside on the front porch in this weather?" Um, and I just find that it's very thought provoking. Or, for instance, like everyone's super bundled up and my kids are in their bathing suits, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, they have the hot tub to jump into to get warmed up, but they're like, "We're not putting on snow gear. We're going to get our bathing suits on," right? Because they see mom and dad do cold water immersion every single morning religiously.
Yep.
And now they're like our little advocates. Like, my oldest daughter is really into like musical theater, and she's wearing blue blocking like yellow glasses, and
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, do you have prescription lenses?" And she's like, "No, I'm just blocking, what's above full spectrum light outside, so my body's doesn't get confused about what time of day it is." And you hear them say stuff like that and you're like, you never think that they're listening, but they're getting it all. They're soaking it all in. And so, like you said, I hope that it sinks in, and I hope that they continue with this when they move out of the house. But at the end of the day, like, all I can do is just provide the information. It's on them to continue it or not continue it.
That's right. Provide the information and provide the lifestyle that allows them to actually live it. And
Yeah.
it's really funny. That makes me think. Today is day 10 of a 10-day fast for myself. I'm still going with it. And actually, I feel so good today. I'm shocked by this, to be totally honest, but I feel so good today that I might continue it. I'm not entirely sure yet. We'll see how it plays out. But the other day, I know I talk about it a little bit in the house, but I didn't realize that my kids would quite pick it up this way. That my 5-year old the other day, I said something to the effect of like, how daddy hasn't been eating lately. And I started to say, I said, well, he goes, "Oh, you're breaking your fast?" I was like, "Oh, I guess you're paying attention way more than I realized." I didn't even know
Yes.
he knew the term fast, and I didn't know he understood what it meant. But it was so cool to just see that he picks it up. We live it. We don't even necessarily need to teach it or talk it or share it directly to him, but just by living it, just by being that example. And as you're saying, with sitting out for the sunrise and doing the daily cold exposure, I love being that oddball. I walk around. Here we are. I think today it's in the teens, shorts on, flip flops on. People are looking at me like I'm
Mhm.
crazy and will comment on that. They will call me crazy. But to your point, if they go there and they actually have any level of curiosity, and it's not just one of those passing judgment things, and they don't
Yes.
think much of it. It's an invitation for a conversation to explain it and let them know, hey, listen, the body has this thing called brown fat. And if you actually expose yourself to the cold deliberately, slowly, you increase your production of brown fat. And when you do, your body can regulate the temperature so much more. You don't feel as cold in this, and it feels better. You can tolerate it. It's healthier for us. So, all those added benefits to it. But I actually really love if I sat down and tried to create a syllabus, if you will, for this conversation. We tried to be too rigid about the science, the details. Let's define this word and talk about it. You're talking more from a standpoint of integrating it into your life. And this is so perfect for me. So if we look at your average day, I love you start your day with the sunrise. I have not missed a sunrise since I learned about all this stuff from Dr. Cruz. Cold exposure. I have my infrared sauna, all these different things that the regular fasting, eating local and seasonal. For you, though, with the family perspective, and I love that the entire family's doing it. What
Yes.
does the rest of the average day look like for the family?
I love this question. I love this. Okay. So we wake up and the first thing we do is hydrate.
Yeah.
So we take molecular hydrogen and ketone, which is sea
Yep.
minerals.
Yep.
Then we make our coffee, and then we take B minerals, which is the earth minerals.
Yes.
So we basically we try to do yin and yang. So we do ocean and then land minerals. So really to
Okay.
get like rehydrated. Um, and then we have this whole what we call our wellness room, and we have full body red light panels. So we'll do a round of red light panels front and back each, turn on the sauna, we'll jump into the cold plunge, and then we'll head downstairs and do sunrise. After sunrise, we'll eat immediately, we'll drink our coffee, and then that's when we go on a family 3 mile walk during UVA. And after that, I homeschool my children. So
Awesome.
we homeschool until their afternoon activities. And then when they're off doing their activities, that's my couple hours to work every day. And we have dinner most times by 4 o'clock. Which sounds really early. And later in the summer months, just earlier in the winter months. So we always eat when it's light outside. And then we always take a sunset walk. We have this park, we call it the Sunset Park because it just has such a beautiful view of the sunset. And so, yeah, multiple times of like movement throughout the day. We eat all of our meals outside almost exclusively. We don't even have a dining room table. Like our dining room table is outside, like on the porch. And we do in the middle of the day before the kids go off to their activities, we do a barefoot walk around the block. Or anytime, like say the kids are having like a hard time focusing or need energy, we always go outside and put our bare feet on the ground. Um, yeah, and so it could be different day to day because of the different activities and whatnot.
Mhm.
But as soon as the sun goes down, we put on our yellow, blue blocking glasses. Um, and then probably an hour or two before bed, we're putting on the orange and which is blocking not just the full sun spectrum above the solar noon, but also it blocks blue and green light. And most people don't know that. So when that happens, your melatonin starts to go up and you start getting sleepy.
Yep.
But most people don't understand that melatonin is actually made in your body during UVA time in the morning
Yep.
when you're
Yep.
walking outside. And so a lot of people that have kind of sleep issues or waking up in the middle of the night issues, I'm like, you've got to get outside in the morning. And
Yes.
so it's interesting. And then, yeah, so usually it's either, reading before bed or watching a show with the kids with blue blocking glasses or whatnot. But we're pretty routine and we're always in bed by like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But we're early risers too. So for us, like that just works really well, right? And giving our body that rest that it needs and all the healing things that happen between the hours of 10 and 2.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's really funny. So much of what you just described is very, very similar to my lifestyle right now. Um, I do not have the entire family in on it with me, though they're not opposed to it. We definitely have a different lifestyle. My wife is a teacher, the kids are in school, they're playing sports, so we are pulled in a lot of different directions. But again, by me doing this and essentially just leading by example, I'm not telling them they have to follow along. You do start to see them pick up some things on their own. And my 5-year-old, especially, as I keep talking about, in the morning, I'm out there doing my grounding, watching the sunrise. And so often he'll come over and he just stands right there with me. I took a picture this morning just to the back of his head. He's got his jacket on and his hood up because it was cold out. But I kind of like that because I don't necessarily need to throw his face all over the place. But I plan on
Yes.
sharing that on Instagram just to show people like I didn't tell him to. I didn't say, hey, let's go out and watch the sunrise. He just sees me do it and he joins me. And I really love it. And I think your dynamic is clearly, in the best sense of the word, the extreme side of the coin. Most people, right? I mean, it's, and that's not a bad, I think it's,
Exactly.
well, in a very good way, though, right? I think it's beautiful. I think the homeschooling is beautiful. The fact that the entire family is doing it. And I mean it from the standpoint of as we talk these things with people and they're so just stuck, if you will, within the matrix, if we want to use that term, and their day to day is they're so stressed out. They take advantage of the modern technology that allows them to stay up until midnight thinking it's still, they don't realize this consciously, of course, but their cells now still believe it's middle of the day
Yep.
because of the light and the detrimental effect that has on their mitochondria, on their cellular level. They don't understand that, and I get it. So that's what I try to teach to them. But as we map out, I mean, I would go so far as to say what you just mapped out sounds like the optimal day for a family. So, okay, hey, you guys are, this next family might be on the other end of the spectrum, but they have a level of interest. Hey, what can we do? Let's slowly look at it. What's a step by step approach? And I imagine that's what you do with a lot of your clients. So the average client isn't coming in and saying, hey, listen, I'm ready to uproot everything I've known for my life up until now. I love what you're talking about. I want to optimize my health. I want to play an active role and empower myself. How the heck do I do it? So I would imagine to start, as you alluded to before, take inventory of your current habits. What are you currently doing? And then we kind of look through what can we change. But do you kind of have a set protocol or is it different case by case? Where do we go from there?
Yeah, obviously it depends on each person individually and their habits. But the first thing that we do is we take inventory of how much time they're actually spending outside. And
Hmm.
people are going to say, oh, I'm outside all the time. And then you ask more questions, and they spend a lot of time like in their car behind
Hmm.
glass, which actually blocks the UV light, right? You can't get glass that doesn't block UV light in the United
Yep,
States.
correct.
Or they're wearing contacts, or they're wearing glasses that block
Yeah,
UV light, right? So we
yeah.
have a lot of receptors. And so we kind of start with this assessment where we truly try to figure out how much time are they spending outdoors. And then we make it into kind of small, tolerable steps. What time do you wake up? Okay, if you're waking up like after sunrise hour, what time are you going to bed? Okay.
Mhm.
Well, if you're going to bed too late, can we use blue blocking glasses to get you to get tired more early on? Could we get you to
Yeah,
switch off your lights? Um, and I'm not extreme. I'm not one of those like Jack Cruz followers who lives under candlelight, right?
yeah,
But I do put on my fireplace, which is like ancestrally how our ancestors would be next to a fire at nighttime. And
yeah,
because the fire is on the ground, ancestrally, like our body's like, okay, we know it's about to be bedtime, right?
yeah.
I do have some red light bulbs at night that we switch off all the lights and we just put on red light bulbs so we can see, but just mainly in our kitchen and dining or, in the living room area, and in our bedrooms.
Hmm.
So I try to see like what small things that are inexpensive or free that we
Yeah,
could do to affect those people to get up earlier, to see the sunrise. And then it's, I always ask people, what could you do outside? And they're like, I go to an office 9 to 5 and I'm inside under fluorescent lights. Okay, cool. Let's talk about that. Do you get a break? Do you get a lunch break? Are you eating your lunch at your desk?
right.
Do you have an office where you could possibly open a window, right, to actually get the sunlight in? If you wear glasses, can you get something like Viva Rays, which allows the UV light to come into your eyes, or take breaks where you're, sitting where you can actually take your glasses off to get
Hmm.
the full spectrum sun into your eyes. And so it's really taking manageable, actionable bite steps to
Hmm.
kind of get people more in aligned with like a circadian rhythm and circadian lifestyle. Like, hey, if you're working out at 4 a.m., cool, but right? Like you have to wear blue blocking glasses if you're going to do it. Can you do it at home where you can manage the light environment instead of going to a
Yeah.
gym? So it really depends on a case by case basis. It depends on how severe whatever condition they're dealing with is, and also like how motivated the client is,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I had someone who had POTS who had zero tolerance for the sun. And so
Mm.
we had to start really slow where it's like you just pop outside for 5 seconds, then we
Yeah.
increase it for 15 seconds, right? And so you're going to have people kind of all over the spectrum.
Hmm.
But yeah, just working step by step to see how much time we can get someone to go outside. And then I always ask, like, for instance, if you have a one-on-one with your boss, can you say, can we put on our tennis shoes and as we catch up, can we go outside for a little stroll? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, people are tired of sitting on Zoom. People are tired of sitting inside. They'd be happy and welcoming to like go outside and take a walk for your one-on-one or whatnot. So just ask yourself, like, if you're doing anything, can I do this outside?
Hmm. That's beautiful. And I'm trying to be mindful of your limit of time. I know you have another podcast to go to, so we'll start to transition over towards the end. So you going over all that right there, I'm certain I know of some people that'll listen to this and say, "Hey, I'm interested in learning a little bit more." If they want to work with you, how do they go about getting in contact with you and working with you, and how does that work out?
Yeah, thank you so much. So my website is called quantumlenswellness.com,
Mhm.
and I have my one-on-one program where I work with people. And um, it's a intense program in the sense that like I have a startup kit that I've put together. I'm calling it's like the first quantum health startup kit where I've
Mhm.
researched all the products and I give someone all the tools that they need to accelerate their healing. So I have a basic program and a premier program. And the basic program is I'm going to give you all the knowledge and you implement it, right?
Mhm.
And then I have like a community where you can ask, questions on group calls and stuff like that. And then my premier program is I'll work one-on-one with you where you get like weekly calls with me. You get the startup kit and you get all the knowledge. But then I'm kind of working with you weekly to make sure that we're implementing the right things that are going to have the biggest effect like on your health. In the fastest way possible. And so those are kind of two ways to work with me. We have the retreat that we're hosting in the Nashville area, June 26th and 27th. And yeah, and I've got lots of different podcasts coming up. So there'll be a link on my website for all the podcasts that I'm on as well.
That's fantastic. Well, I cannot begin to thank you enough for coming on. I'm so grateful to have met you, and I look forward to where the journey takes us because I'm certain this is not the end. I mean, minimally, we already booked for next week for me to come on your podcast, and I
Thank you.
can't wait for that. And this is going to lead to some pretty awesome things. So thank you so much for your time. And audience, be sure get on over there, check out. I know you're on Instagram. Any other platforms?
That's it for now. And then
Okay,
the Quantum
cool.
Lens podcast will be coming out next month. So
And where are you going to host that? Will that be on YouTube, Spotify? Where you?
it's going to be on both. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So I believe the audience has some stuff to work with, some actionable items from this conversation to take away right now and get working. And thanks again. I really appreciate it. So,
Hey,
audience, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, I wish you the best in your journey and I'll be watching your progress. And again, I was very happy to meet you too. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm feeling beyond optimistic about it. I truly feel, as I told you on the phone, that my aspect of my journey right now and this little blessing is my opportunity to show people what the human body is capable of. There's zero fear whatsoever and nothing but optimism to know that when this tumor is gone, I have a whole visualization process of how I'm going to share the story and hopefully
Mm,
empower as many people as possible to make changes before they have to come across a diagnosis and really optimize their health.
I
So
love
yeah,
it.
thank you very much. I appreciate it. And audience, as you always hear me say, if you haven't already, you watch this long, subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. And till next time, be well. Have a blessed day.